Phyllis, do you want to go ahead and start? Perfect. Hi, welcome Evie. This is our group, Shelf Indulgence. I'm Brittany. We've been emailing back and forth.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Hi, Emily, Evie,
Hi.
Emily, Evie.
Whichever one you want, I'll answer to both.
Emily on the bottom of the screen. So.
Oh yeah, I can hang on, I'm going to change that. There we go.
Okay, so we'll take a really quick picture. We usually do a screen cap.
Sure.
So if everybody's ready, we'll do that quickly and then we will start chatting. Oh, Bailey, do you have the book? You always hold it up.
No, I let someone borrow it. So my friend's reading it.
Oh, great.
Amy has it.
Oh, perfect. There we go. All right, you guys ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay. Do you guys want to ask questions to Evie? Is that where we want to start?
Yeah, ask anything you want.
You were compiling some questions from everybody. Brittany, I don't know if you wanted to start them or.
I do. I had a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you have a sequel planned?
I would love to. Yeah, I do have a sequel planned. I don't know if it will be published or not, but I've got a lot of notes for. What I've got is 2 sequels planned. Actually, I'd like to write the next one and then the one after that. But they're not commissioned at the moment. I shouldn't say this, but I am writing another. This was my first book as Evie Green, and I have just been commissioned, although it's not signed yet, by Berkeley to write another one as Evie Green, but it's not related to this book at all, but it is a kind of near future sci-fi kind of story. So it's not a direct sequel to this one, but I'd love to. I'd love to if they'd let me.
Awesome.
Yeah, because then, of it, you have like the big revelation of the little baby.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Crap. Now what's going to happen with her? She's been nice. She's been sort of, benevolent as a little baby. She hasn't really been doing anything.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to tog her down for a book though.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure what will happen to her, but yeah, lots of things would happen with her. And I think in the second book, if I did get to do it as 3 books, the second one would be focusing on the journey into space. And then the third one would be with baby Beth a little bit grown up, and that happens then.
You did a little subtle foreshadowing with Beth, and I was going, no. It was subtle, you were kind of playing with us, and I thought she is not going to do that.
Well, when you kept saying she was special and everybody knew how special she was, I'm like, But one thing I wanted to point out, like when I started the book, and I loved it, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much.
Really was between Graham and the boyfriend Louis. I wasn't sure if they were good or not. And I kind of liked that it was a slow development. At first I thought, oh, this person isn't great. And I appreciated the character development. I really felt where a lot of books fall short is in character development. And
oh, thank you so much. And yeah, it on the surface, it isn't great to have an underground ward of disturbed children. So it's there's a lot of grey area as well of like what are people's actual motives, and nobody's completely good or completely bad. So I wanted to kind of play around with sympathies like that a little bit, because I think that's the interesting part in between, isn't it?
Right. And it was a little more complex in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I thought also. I agree.
Thank you. It went through so many stages of editing this book that I would finish a draft and then know that it wasn't quite right, and then I would do it again and again. I've written a lot of books under my real name as Emily, and I've never ever been through such a long editing process as this one, maybe because it was different from what I normally do. I've never written anything with horror or sci-fi, and I don't think I would have started it if I'd known that I was writing horror, which is what it's now marketed as, which it wasn't when I was writing it. It wasn't at all. I was kind of thinking speculative fiction. The publishing world is very obsessed, as you probably know, with genres and labeling. A book has to fit into a genre. And I think I set out thinking I was writing something speculative. And then it kind of went a little bit into sci-fi with the space stuff, and I wasn't really sure what it was. And then very late in the day, my editor called from New York and said, we're going to do this as horror. And I was like, I can't write horror. I don't know how to do it. It was really, I would never, ever, ever have set out to do that, but I did by mistake. So yeah, that was weird. It was like the whole genre of horror kind of trapped me without me realizing it. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
I have a question, just sort of along those lines, since you didn't really start out with sci-fi and it just sort of, I guess organically, went in that direction at some point. What was your original inspiration? What got you going on the book originally?
That's a really good question, because there is always something that does that, isn't there? It was a really old book from the 50s or 60s, I think, by John Wyndham, who's a sci-fi writer. He wrote The Day of the Triffids as his most famous book, but one of his other books is called Chucky, and I remembered reading it like really inappropriately young as a child, and it's about a boy who has a voice in his head that is speaking to him, and the whole thing is narrated by his father, who's getting involved in what this thing in his talking to his son in his head actually is. And I found a copy of that in a charity store here and reread it. And it just, that idea of a little boy, and I have 3 children, the idea of having a child who's got this thing in their head that is totally alien to you, and trying to work out as it becomes more and more troublesome, like at what point do you stop going, that's cute, and start worrying about it. And I just, that idea just really, really lodged in my head. And then I went through a bit of a process of where does what kicks it off? And then this pandemic entered the narrative, which I now kind of wish it hadn't, because it's a bit awkward. But
I'm very prescient in your, and that you didn't go too far with it. See, particularly movie shows, they go really apocalyptic. Yet yours was, so it was way before this started. It's more the day-to-day and what people are dealing with, no apocalyptic landscape. So that was interesting.
Yeah, it was the kind of day-to-day, and I spent so much time researching what would happen if there was a pandemic, and like how daily life would actually still feel the same. Then it would actually be quite boring because you get stuck at home and those things. And I did the last edit. I sent it back to my editor because I checked the date on this afterwards, at the end of October in 2020. So, sorry, 2019. So wow. There was just nothing. It was just, there was possibly the beginnings of people talking about something happening in China, but I had no idea that this was all to come and it would become a real thing, or I would have changed that aspect of it completely.
Do you think the pandemic is going to make the sequels more difficult to get published?
Quite possibly, yeah. I'm not sure anyone's got much of an appetite for reading lots of pandemic books at the moment. I don't know, but thank you all for reading it. That's really, really great that you did.
What year did you think it was set in for you when you were starting writing it?
I had yeah. It was set in, I think it was in 2045, but I never wrote that. And then when I started speaking to a friend of mine who knows about space science, he was a bit like, none of this could quite happen in 2045. So it might be more like 2060. And so I just left it a little bit vague as to what year it was. But at one point I had it, I always, when I'm doing a book, to keep the dates and timings and the way it's sort of internal time making sense, I always plot it on my computer calendar. So I'll have things that have really happened in amongst events from my book. So it's always very precisely on a day, and I have it all written in 2045, all the events of this book. So if you know, happily one day, if I'm lucky, I'll get there, and then I'll find all these calendar alerts coming up of totally random things happening. So yeah.
Oh, that's fun. I had a couple of questions, but I don't want to, if someone else has something, I don't want to jump in.
Go ahead, Gretchen.
Okay. One thing that I found interesting was the ghost of Imogen. And was she a ghost? Was it a manifestation of him because of his guilt and how he should be behaving? Or was it related to these alien life forms?
It's whatever you want it to be, really. I think it's a manifestation that he's creating from his feelings of guilt, but it might not be. It might be her real ghost. It could be something completely different. So I wrote it as being something that he's kind of almost hallucinating, because he's just so crippled with the guilt. So yeah, that's what I think. But it can be anything that anyone wants it to be.
Thank you. And then my other question, you know, talking about it being a horror book, before you came on, we were all kind of saying it didn't feel 100% horror. It was kind of like young adult dystopian sci-fi type thing. But if I step back and think of what was most horrifying to me, other than spiders, which everybody's creeped out by that, like your concept of this work-life housing thing, like that you could never get out of. It's like a terrifying. And what made you come up with that? That's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. That came. I was talking to my husband about the kind of what would be the worst capitalist, like super capitalist things in the near future, and the kind of taking the division between rich and poor to its limits. Like, what would be the worst thing that could happen? And he said, like the Victorian workhouses, which were in Britain, people who didn't have enough money to pay their debts or to live would be put into the workhouse, where they would work on whatever was needed, and basically just be given some food and a bit of floor to sleep on. And so it was a kind of, I was trying to update that concept into the idea of belonging, like completely being at the mercy of your employer and belonging to them. And then when the world around is so difficult, then suddenly it can look like a lifeline, like you actually have a place to live, and you get tokens for food, and you don't have to worry about surviving anymore. Then suddenly it becomes it becomes something that is quite desirable, which is awful. But yeah, the idea that once you get in there, it's impossible to get out is really quite chilling, and they'll do everything they possibly can to make sure you don't leave. So yeah, I agree, it's awful.
Yeah, and I felt like it was part social commentary, especially, I don't know what's going on. I know the populist movement is like worldwide and in England as well, but you know, with the election that we had here and everyone's fear of socialism and crazy conspiracy theories, I was like, wow, you're hitting all the buttons with the COVID-19.
Oh, we're the same here. The whole thing of Brexit was just a massive populist movement. I hate it. I'm lucky enough to be Irish as well as British, so I do still have my European identity, but it's been absolutely terrifying and interesting seeing the parallels across the Atlantic as well. The whole COVID denialism that we have, and it's escalated quite a lot, hasn't it, over the last few years.
I really like your description of it being sort of decaying capitalism, or a reflection of decaying capitalism, or advanced decaying capitalism, because I kind of feel, this is just my personal sense in the US, is that the 4-year administration we had and the election and everything that happened is kind of a expression of decaying capitalism in this. So I think of it more like that than of a different social system, like, okay, now we have socialism, because I don't believe we do in any way, shape, or form, but maybe unfortunately sometimes I think that. So,
absolutely, yeah.
the thing that to me was like how rigid that system in your book was, because like once, like they couldn't even try to work themselves out of it. Like it was against the rules for her to go get a law office job, even though there was a job available to her.
Yeah.
That was like, wow, extreme.
Yeah. I was trying to get the rules in place so that they made sense. It's really strange when it only really exists in your head or in your notebook, but I was trying to make the rules so like, of course they don't want her to get a good job on the outside, because then they'll leave, and they want their workers all where they can control them. I mean, not that different from the stories you hear about people working for Amazon and other companies like that, where the workers are treated really badly, and then the people at the top of the chain have like all the money in the world. It's yeah, unfortunately it's a bit too close to reality.
But you were also offering this idea that we were going to build another generation that might be better, a utopia in space, you know, where Nina is going to, she'd never leave, but she'd have children, and then the children, and that would be the future. This idea that at some point we're going to have to escape.
Yeah. I'd like to think that we can say, you know, pull it back and look after the environment enough, but the whole idea of that as an alternative future for the human race, I got really interested in it, and I spoke to this space scientist, and I was like, you know, just imagine that there's a planet somewhere that where this could happen, and he was like, no, you've got to have a colony ship, so because it would be so far away, unless you want to invent, as you know, people do in sci-fi, invent the technology where you can just sort of leap incredibly far away in a way that we haven't yet been able to work out how to do. Or you can have the colony ship where people set off and then generations later they reach their end destination, which is such a chilling idea that I felt like I had to put that in. So if I did get to write a second book, a part of it, all of Nina's part, would be her journey of just going, knowing that she was going to spend the rest of her life on this spaceship, but doing it for the good of
humanity. So it closed with
humanity.
her kind of not wanting to do that when she found out what it was. So, but she maybe has to, or
yeah, I think she I don't know, if I leave it at one book and then I think that she doesn't do it, but if I'm writing another book, then I think she does, because it's such an interesting thing to explore, and like how chilling to just spend the rest of your life there and know that you have to have a baby to continue, whose life you're sort of, they'll be destined to have to continue this journey.
Yeah.
And it would be a few generations, right, before they got there?
I think so, yeah, quite I mean, you wouldn't really do it, would you? I can't imagine it. I can't imagine really who or why would say, why you'd say yes to doing that, unless you really, really strongly believed that at the end of it, long after you were dead, something good would happen.
There's a really cheesy, like, young adult show called The 100. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it. I gave up after so many seasons, a couple, but it is that premise where it starts in space, and there's these teenagers who had been born in space, and they were a colony ship, but their spaceship is falling apart, and so they have to go. Anyway, it's sort of that same theme, though.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Who was your favorite character to write?
I think Nina was my favorite character to write, because I just really liked a little bit of sort of determination and optimism. And I think teenagers in fiction are so often moody and difficult. And I just thought, you know, I have 3 teenagers now. My youngest wasn't that old when I started it. And, you know, I think they're great. Them and their friends, they really have a bad reputation, and I think this world now that we've kind of been like, there you go, here's this sort of really difficult, problematic world for you. I think they're dealing with things amazingly. All the teenagers I know are coping with like online college and having to stay at home and the pandemic, and then in our case Brexit and their whole freedom of movement in Europe being taken away by something that they didn't have a chance to vote for at all. And they're so resilient about it. I know I'm so much in awe of so many young people I know. I just really wanted to put that into a character. So Nina was sort of came from that background, and obviously COVID wasn't a thing when I was writing her, but I have written a lot of YA, and I really love writing teenagers. So she was probably my favorite character to write. I also really liked Rachel because I just put all of my mother's anxieties in there and just let them multiply a million times over.
Yeah.
Nice to do. Priscilla too. That's the character's name, right? The friend, Nina's friend. I just like that they were all really smart and sharp and like problem solvers, and even her boyfriend,
Louis.
all of them. They were just, as a little team, they just did all these incredible things. I couldn't even figure out like the first step of what they were trying to deal with the blogs and then the and then responding to the millions of emails that they were getting. Yeah. So it was really, I loved all the teen figures. They were really
thank you. Yeah, I think teenagers I mean, not easy all the time by any means, but I do think that teenagers get a bit of a bad reputation. And it's nice to write good ones.
So Peter, who the children end up killing with the spiders.
Poor Peter.
Poor Peter, yeah.
Obviously, he just had an imaginary friend that was really, truly an imaginary friend.
Yeah.
And I know near the end of the book, you talked about the race of, do they have a name or do they identify themselves?
No, I don't think so, no.
It said they were naturally, like, I don't remember the words you used, but they were antagonistic or angry or they basically just are that way. And so was that really, there was no motivation for killing Peter? Were they afraid he was going to figure them out, or just like, hey, we're just kind of antagonistic and we want to bully someone? And
yeah, I think they just didn't really understand why that would be seen as a bad thing in their world. You don't like somebody, and so you just get rid of them. It was in the same kind of thing as Billy killing his grandmother, because the voice is just like, no, she's annoying, shut her down. So yeah, and the whole thing with Peter and the spiders, that was a fairly late addition to the book. It was the next edit I did after they said that it was going to be filed under horror, and so we had a little chat about where to ramp up the horror and make it more horrible. So poor Peter. Before that, Peter was, they did attack him, but he was fine. But then unfortunately the publisher's genre shift meant that Peter got a worse ending.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny that that happened after they told you they were going to put it in horror. So you were like, okay,
we need need a bit more horror going on in here. Yeah, a bit more spider action.
So why spiders?
People were like, I don't know what to call those, that they must have given the kids super strength, because like Billy was 8 years old or 7 years old or something, and he was able to smother his grandmother. And I mean, she was older, but she wasn't 90 or anything. So I figured, well, they must get like superhuman, like psychopathic superhuman strength or something.
Exactly. Yeah, they must do. Just the total determination and the strength, I suppose, the strength coming from whatever is living inside him to do that.
Why spiders, Evie? Of all the things that you could have picked.
Because I actually like spiders. I think they're really cool. And when I was younger, my mother would always call me to like get a spider out of the bathroom or something, and I would just like scoop it up and take it outside. So I like spiders, and so I thought it was nicer to write something horrible that a lot of people hate but I like, because it made it easier to write it. And then I started reading up on spiders, and they are such amazing creatures. My husband, this wasn't my only Christmas present, but he bought me a book called like Everything You Need to Know About Spiders, and I was like, oh, I'm married to the right man. And they are amazing. They're particularly social spiders, who they live in a kind of colony, and they will get together and go and catch a prey that is far too big for any individual spider to be able to get. So normally they'd live on their own and make their web and catch their flies or whatever, but sometimes you can get them all living together, and they'll just swarm something much bigger than them, tie it up in a web, and it's awful, but kind of cool. So they'll take down birds and things like that. So I just, when I read about that, I thought they could take down poor Peter.
They did.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
And they put all the other people, they wrapped them up in their
security guards.
Yeah, that was I did enjoy writing that bit. It was just felt so mad. I was like, am I allowed to write this? It's so much fun and so completely bizarre. Really nice distraction from real life.
So the book cover with the flames and the fire, what does that represent?
I think I don't know. I think it represents a horror book about a little boy. I don't know. I just see the cover when they've kind of done it and they go, this is the cover. Do you like it? So it's like, yeah, I like the orange and black.
I mean, it's a cool cover.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, there isn't really a fire. You know, the flames aren't really from anything in the book. So I think it's just to make it look a bit scary. I don't know.
I'm sure there's something. Well, see, today it's so unusual.
A plane crash?
Because nobody buys physical books that much, it seems like, anymore. You know, you do audio books, or you do Zoom, or I'm not Zoom. You do
ebooks.
Online ebooks.
Yeah.
And so it's so like it's unusual to go out and shop and buy, but I think in the past it was so graphic. It's like, what's going to call attention to this book? Like if somebody who doesn't really know the specific book that they're looking for, but
yeah,
shop looking at books. So I think book covers were more like, what's going to grab attention, just like a title, what's going to grab attention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is a funny thing, the book cover. It's something that authors really have almost no input into, because there's all the publishing houses have their own departments doing it, and it's I was pleased when I saw this one, although maybe the flames were from the rocket crash, the plane crash, but yeah, I think that so I keep looking down because I got it right here, but I think that I like the boy figure on it. I think he does look quite spooky, so yeah.
Did you toy with any other names for it, the virus, besides flu or the J?
Oh yeah, it was originally just called, I was just calling it flu or super flu, but Stephen King uses that in The Stand, so I had to not call it super flu. And then we just kind of came up with a random series of letters and numbers for it. But yeah, if I'd known now, I could have called it like something COVID related. I don't know, but it was before that. I can't remember. I remember discussing this with my editor at some length, and we thought just a sort of random like a number letter kind of thing, that didn't really mean anything, was the kind of thing that the name that it might have been given by an establishment trying to cover up what it actually is, just give it a name that means nothing. Was kind of where that came from, and then everybody calling it flu, even though it wasn't flu at all.
I like the little jingles you had in the mass transit
Oh yeah.
And they had, you know, to wear your mask and all the, you know, I thought that was really clever and fun.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fun to do. But a bit freaky since then that now that kind of thing is there on the public transport. And at the time I thought I was just making it up, but no.
So you said you did research, though, obviously, because it was so close to what that you researched pandemics.
I did research.
You weren't going way crazy on what was happening. You weren't going all apocalyptic. You
Right.
it eerily close to what we have now.
Yeah, it was. I did research it, and I remember talking to a scientist, I guess, and he said the one thing all world governments are most afraid of is a pandemic, but they'll never say so. And it was just like a theoretical thing at the time. And yeah, the idea of like lockdowns, I don't know what your current situation is over there, but we're here in a lockdown where you're supposed to only leave your house once a day, and all the schools are closed all over the whole country. And it's just really boring. And that was when I researched what it would actually be like if there was a pandemic. And I came across the idea of like a national lockdown where everyone has to stay indoors. And I thought they'd never do that. I just couldn't imagine it. So I did in the book, they have a kind of watered down version of it where you have to quarantine for amounts of time. And I never imagined, like, here we are nearly a year into it, and I'm not supposed to leave my house except once a day, and my children are all studying on Zoom, which I'd never even heard of. It's the world has gone so far beyond anything that I imagined would happen when I was researching this.
But I think what I just remembered you had so on point was the conspiracy theories. You talked about people like, it's not real, like it's just this. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Predicted that one.
Yeah.
And now they're coming out with a strand phenomenon that they actually do hear voices. We call it the COVID psychosis.
Oh no.
And I've had a lot of my patients hearing voices.
Really?
So that was what started to creep me out so much. As I was working as a pandemic nurse at the same time as reading the book, and that part of the hearing voices was what sent me over the edge.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh great, so this is predicted, this is supposed to happen. Great, please take off your mask. Most of our voices are saying to take off your mask.
Oh right, yeah.
Don't listen to the voice in your head that says to take off your mask. You'll die. Please don't take off your mask. But it's been interesting that all of a sudden that's coming out, is that this newest strain is causing so much psychosis that lasts even after they recover from the respiratory illness.
Really?
So kind of freaky.
Oh my God, that's so freaky. I hadn't heard about that before. I'm going to immediately look that up. That's really freaky. I didn't know that.
Good psychosis. Have fun.
Thank you.
That'll
Yes.
inform your next book.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. COVID psychosis. God. That's terrifying.
He's got some extraterrestrial being in her head that knows the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to talk about creepy crawly spiders? It was more the idea that she was so predictive in this book that was giving me the creepy crawly spiders.
Well, yeah, it's very strange. It feels very strange to have written it and then real life catch up and overtake in that way.
Well, I think there should be conspiracy theories about you in that case.
True. Well, and just so we're clear, I've had people quoting me conspiracy theories as we were intubating them with COVID. They don't believe it's real up to the point that I wish I was joking. I had one lady that was, she refused to keep her oxygen on because we were making up that she had the virus.
No
I was like,
way.
lady, you can look at the numbers yourself. Are you kidding me?
Oh my God.
Yeah, she was so convinced that it was a conspiracy that we made up that she tested positive, and we made up that she needed to be in the hospital. And I'm like, lady, I'm not making up that your oxygen level 68. Like, seriously, look at the monitor. That's not me making that up. That's you.
Oh, that's incredible.
She was 50.
Oh, okay.
So unfortunately, the psychosis hits the younger ones harder than the olders. So it's been interesting.
Wow.
But she was another one that the voices were telling her not to wear the mask, and the voices told her it was all fake. And but she came in talking about the conspiracy. Yeah, it's been interesting. But now I'm in Mexico, so I don't have to deal with it.
That Mexico looks very nice. It's like that sunshine.
Thank you. Yeah, we do have a curfew. We're not supposed to leave our house. The Malecon is closed. But it's a much nicer place to be quarantined.
Oh God, yeah. Wow, that's so nice. Oh,
as the boat goes by.
Wow.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah, I would take that.
Yeah. You have to quarantine, that's not so bad.
I mean,
yes, exactly.
Talking about your lockdown where you are right now, in the States, each state has its own rules, but Americans are selfish and they don't stay home and they don't do anything. I should say, but like as a whole, it's bad. Like everybody's doing everything. Restaurants just opened in Michigan this past Monday again, and everybody flocked to them.
Restaurants in Woodstock had been open
amazed
for months. I mean, I think there was a little lockdown, and then as soon as the governor of our state opened things up really early, there's never been a lockdown since that point. I mean, there's supposed to be social distancing, there's supposed to be mask wearing. I guess restaurants are limiting numbers, but I actually have not. I'm doing the same thing that I did during lockdown. I'm working at home. I have a horse, so she's at a farm, it's outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And I go like as little as possible, but when I have to go get food, I go to the grocery store and run in and out. And I'm doing the same. I'm not going to restaurants. I'm not, and I don't get people. I
live in downtown Woodstock, and the Ice Martini Lounge and Bar was hopping last night. It was everybody out drunk outside, no social distancing whatsoever. But just seemed like old times.
Kind of depends on where
and smoking and blowing their aerosol COVID everywhere.
That's
awesome.
The bars are packed. They've stayed packed. When she drives by any kind of bar, restaurant, it's packed.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, we did have ours were all shut down, restaurants and bars, until just this past Monday. But
oh wow.
Well, I was amazed they opened up all of California right as I was leaving, and I know what
now it's shut
our
down.
numbers were. I mean, we were losing 5 a night in our small little unit,
and
all of a sudden they opened up.
But
are they shut back down?
Yeah, they're shut down.
I think they'll shut down again.
My sister's live there. Yeah.
Well, we were expecting a little 2-week reprieve from COVID deaths or numbers, just between the time from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and then we expected after that 2 weeks was up that the Christmas numbers would start popping into the hospital. Because it's not about necessarily when you get it, it's about when it goes bad. And so we were expecting 2 weeks after I left for the numbers to be popping back up, which I imagine they probably are. I haven't looked, and I don't want to know.
Yeah.
There's certain parts of the virus I try not to deal with. What
is it like there? So you guys haven't opened up at all?
Here, yes, we had a full lockdown in April, I think, and then it opened up again in about June. Things were kind of open, and then they closed down a bit in November, opened it. They don't really know what they're doing, but at the moment, the numbers were just so massively high, particularly compared to other countries, that everything's closed now. All the bars, all the restaurants, essential shops are open for food and pharmacies and everything. All the schools are closed, all the shops really are closed, all the bars, everything.
Do you have a vaccine program that's going on now?
Yes, we do, which is great. My father's 80 and he lives on his own at the other end of the country from me, so he's been a real worry all the way through this, but he's now had it's the 2 vaccines, isn't it? He's had his first vaccine, and my mother, who lives just up the road from me, she's got her first one coming up on Tuesday, which is good. And I'm despite having no medical qualifications, I am undertaking some training to work as a vaccinator, so I'll be doing some of that from
job.
From March onwards, I'll be qualified to do that. So yeah, hopefully we can get enough people vaccinated to start to open up again. But our government have handled this so badly. I don't trust them at all. So
I feel like all governments probably have.
Yeah.
Like nobody was prepared for this.
It's Hunger Games over here. It's my husband's had two.
I think that's the sentiment in the U.S. and
I get the second one tomorrow. But you're totally on your own trying to figure out where and when and who gets an appointment. It's some people are lucky, some people aren't. It's every state has different rules. So it's Hunger Games as far as getting.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wow.
It's fashions. I saw somebody posted something about the onesies that are coming out. They all look like gray. So evidently Cherokee County got District 12 for Hunger Games.
I saw those at Target the other day.
Yeah, exactly. At Target. That's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, Cherokee County.
Right. I'm going to have to leave you in a second because I need to go and check in with my my parents and make sure everybody's all right. But it's so nice to talk to you.
Oh,
thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me, and thank you so much for reading my book. That's so lovely.
When is your next one due out? The one that you're currently working on?
I don't know. I haven't written very much of it yet, so it'll probably be a while. Maybe like late 2022, possibly. But yeah, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
So we can go read some Emily Barr books.
Yes, you can. Yeah. The most recent ones in the US are young adults, so if you don't mind that, then that's
we like that.
Fantastic. Lovely. Oh, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Evie.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Do you want to stop the recording?
Yes.
That was cool.
Okay. I guess we should have let you all know you were being recorded. So.
Mine says recording now.
Oh, yeah.
It's still recording, Phyllis.
Ari, it's still recording though.
And we're letting us know we're still recording.
We're still recording.